Welcome back. These are the MAT 1140 notes for Chapter 3. This first page, and we will do these page by page, this first page covers Section 3.1, which is present and number equivalent. So we are going to take numbers, write them as percents. We are going to take percents, write them as numbers. I think my examples do that in the opposite order, but it's all good. Okay. So when we talk about fractions and decimals, we have to be talking about the same thing. I cannot talk about $500,000 and compare that to $0.75, right? So different when we talk comparisons, fractions, decimals, and percents, we have to make sure we're referring to the same unit or the same whole amount, okay? When we do that, it's called a percent. Percent, if you think like 1 cent, means out of 100, or per 100, or if we're talking about the decimal, it's hundredths. Because if we think about decimal places, the first place after the decimal is the tenths. That second place is the hundredths. And so we are talking about parts here, okay? Parts of a whole. So let's talk about how we convert from a percent to a number. Okay, remember, it's out of 100, so when I talk about a percent, it's that number out of 100. So 44%, which we read as this, 44%, also means 44 hundredths. So when we write that as a fraction, we have our 44 numerator, I apologize, out of that 100. That's our denominator. That's how big the parts are. The numerator is how many parts we have. When we divide that, we could just plug it into the calculator, we get 0.44. Okay? So a lot of times when we convert from that percent to a number, it is going to be a decimal between 0 and 1. Okay? So let's talk about 213%. I am not going to write out how we say that, but that is 213 hundredths. So when I write that as a fraction, it's 213 over 100. Notice now that my numerator is larger than my denominator. We've got an improper fraction, and when we divide, we get 2.13. So this has a whole number part as well as a decimal part. That would mean two wholes, two groups of 100, and then 13 pieces of size 1/100th. We can also do these, and this gets a little confusing. It's important to pay attention to whether you've got the percent or you are converting. 0.06% means 0.06 hundredths. And I did a lot of the math here. Again, you can go right from this point, 0.06 out of 100, and I could pop that into the calculator. Same thing. But just as a reminder, since we just talked about equivalent fractions, I can also multiply numerator and denominator by 100. That way I get a true fraction. I have no decimals in this version. When I divide that, though, I do get 0.0006. Take that answer as is. Don't try to change it based on how you feel it should look. Okay. Next example here, 13 3/4. If you want, this would be a great place to pause, give it a shot yourself, and then come back and double check. Totally up to you. But I want to start by converting this fraction to its decimal equivalent. This makes this 13.75, which means I have 13 wholes and 75/100. So you got to be very careful. The 13 wholes stays 13 wholes. It's only the 75 that gets put over 100. It's only that 75 over 100 that we are dividing. Okay, so take a minute to look at that. I know what the problem is here, so I'm not going to start and re-record here. My problem is that I forgot the percent sign. So this is the third time I've done this, and I keep screwing it up. So 13 3/4%. Woohoo! 3 divided by 4. Sorry to make you erase that. That's 13.75%. That means when we write this as a fraction, it's 13.75 over 100. I will correct that next time I fix these notes. When we divide, I get 0.1375. Notice here's my whole number percent. There's my 13% part. And then here's the part of the single percent. Okay. So remember, we do want to take that fraction, rewrite it as a decimal before we divide. And I apologize for the confusion and my first misstep there. Going the other way, converting from a number to a percent. So when we converted from a percent to a number, we divided by 100. We put that part over 100. If we are going the other direction, we have to do that inverse operation. So instead of dividing by 100, we are going to multiply. So this feels fairly straightforward, and students tend to like this more. You've got to remember, though, which is the number, which is the percent. So notice here in my example, when I multiplied, I didn't just multiply the 0.27 by 100. I added the unit. I added the percent symbol as a reminder that when I get my answer, it should include the percent. So again, at any point here, you can stop the recording, give this a shot, and then come back and check your answers. Okay. I cannot do this with well, I could with a fraction if we wanted. Let's see how this looks with the fraction. Some people like converting it to a decimal. You're gonna get the same answer. What you have to remember is when we multiply a fraction by a whole number, we write that whole number over 1, and then we multiply straight across. So 1 times 100 gives me that 100 in the numerator. 4 times 1 gives me the 4 in the denominator. My percent hasn't gone anywhere, and 100 divided by 4 is 25%. We're going to divide at some point. It doesn't matter if you divide that 1/4 to start or if you divide the 100 by 4 at the end. Whatever makes the most sense to you is fine. 0.004, again, times 100%. I get 0.4%. Keep in mind, my percentage answer could still have a decimal. Okay. Couple of ways to do the last one. We could divide 2 by 3. We are going to get a repeating 6, so it depends on how far out we want to carry that before we round. We are still multiplying by 100%. So when I multiply that, I get 266, and we'll carry this to 2 decimal places. 0.67, we'll round there.